Hi there, this is Andrea Mowry of Andrea Renee Knits, and this is a little weekly podcast called I'll Knit If I Want To, where I try my best to answer some of your questions. This week I am wearing my brand new, super cozy and drapey Nebula sweater. I just released it on Tuesday, and it comes two different versions. So I today just threw it on with leggings. It's pretty hot here, but just so you can kind of see. Yeah, I thought for a moment, do we just let it go? But she is gonna remain headless for now. Anyways, so you can kind of see the movement of the sweater. Really, really nice drape, super soft and lightweight. This one is knit with Odang DK from the Farmer's Daughter Fibers. It has a drop hem, which you shape with short rows. So it has this like really pretty curve in the hem, so it's a little bit longer in the back than in the front. It is a nice oversized, super comfy sweater with like some sweet little shoulder details. I think you might actually, the light might catch better on this side, and a little crew neck. It has been great. I have dressed it up, I have dressed it down. It's kind of a good all-around sweater that you can wear across lots of seasons. This is the very first one. I knew I wanted something short-sleeved. I have a couple cute little, little bit tighter sleeved, just soft shirts that I like to wear under something like this that have longer sleeves, so I can wear it when it's a little cooler outside, or just keep it as a short sleeve top for when it's warmer like today. And then this version, because I just can't help myself and love to knit things more than once. She got a little askew from her tumble. My apologies, good lady. So this is the longer sleeve version that I knit up using a combination of Odang from the Farmer's Daughter Fiber, the lace weight, the original, with Confluence cotton. So I'm actually gonna grab my yarn so you can see the colors I used together, because I think it was this really unexpected color combo that when you see it, it kind of feels like it should not work, but it is. I love how it turned out so much. And let me show you the yarn. I'm gonna try really hard not to knock my mannequin over again. So Confluence cotton is one of the newer bases from the Farmer's Daughter Fibers, and I am head over heels for this yarn. It is, I think, 70 to 80% Rambouillet and Targhee mixed with 20 to 30% of, I should have a label right around here, cotton. And that little touch of cotton, that's Odang. Oh, I do have a label. Okay. So 80% Targhee and Rambouillet, 20% cotton. And it's crazy because the yardage on it almost looks like it should be more of a lace weight, but it's not. There's something about that mix. Both of those breeds, the Rambouillet and the Targhee, are fluffy. Like when you spin those, they just puff right up. It's so delightful. And I think then mixed with the cotton, it has just got this plump factor that I love, even though it's a fingering weight yarn. So held together with the Odang, just made for the most incredible fabric. And yes, I see my fold, whoop, whoop. My fold line down the middle is driving me bonkers as well. So I'm sure you see it. I wore it. I never wear sweaters before I release them, but I was just so excited to wear these ones that I did. And then I had it folded to wait until the actual release to wear it again. And apparently I did not fold that one very well. It's got that big old crease. Anyways, these are the yarns. So these, I had bought a few different skeins from Farmer's Daughter Fibers. I just wanted to check out different colors. And I had gotten some of the Confluence cotton, and then I had gotten some Odang colors I was curious about. And these two ended up next to each other, just like hanging out. And I was like, oh my gosh, this does something for me. I love these two colors together so much that I'm gonna try holding them together. And I love how it turned out. Again, I just think it's something you might not think would work, but I really love it. And it also gave it great stitch definition. I love the Oh Dang Decay. Again, I'm gonna move a little closer so you can see the texture on this. I love that fabric. It's so comfortable to wear. I mean, seriously, it's just so light. It's like a cloud. But I also love how this fabric knits up. I love the stitch definition. It's much more crisp than the Oh Dang Decay. Super soft, delightful to wear next to skin. Just a delight. And since I was knitting a second one, so I want to talk about ease in this sweater because I think that's something that would be helpful to talk about. So I will talk about the differences there, but the other difference is I wanted to have a sleeved option because I know some of us might not want to wear shorter sleeves, and it's just nice if you want it to, again, be another transitional season sweater. If you'd like to be able to wear it in multiple seasons, sometimes it is nice, even in the warmer months, but when that air conditioner is blasting, it's nice to have something that you can kind of pull on. And again, these are so comfortable. To me, it's like a sweatshirt. So I could easily keep this tucked in my bag to bring to like the movies or out to dinner. We actually went to a play a little while back. We took the kids to a play and I wore it. That's what I snuck and wore it out before the release. And it was perfect. So let's talk about ease. So you can see in this sweater, this has a lot of positive ease on my body. So we'll recap real quick. What is ease? Ease is how much bigger or smaller the garment is than your physical body. So let's say I have a 35-inch bust. My finished sweater, I actually don't know the exact measurements of this off the top of my head. I'm gonna just go with like, I know I had over 20 inches of positive ease. I think it was like 23 or 24. So that means if I have a 35-inch bust, the finished measurement of this sweater, I think was 58 inches. So this measures 58 inches around, so that's 23 inches of positive ease on me. For some people, that is going to feel like, whoa, a lot of positive ease. If you're new to wearing positive ease, the weekender sweaters are a great jumping off point. There's a reason that's probably one of my absolute most popular patterns, and it's because it's one that is super comfortable to wear. It works great on a lot of different body shapes and sizes. So that's a good stepping stone and one that I would recommend if going all the way to 20 inches of positive ease feels a little scary. This sweater could be knit with less positive ease. So I say between 10 to 24 inches, I think is a good range to play around in. After I knit this one, I did want to kind of move a little bit closer to the usual positive ease I do for something like a drop shoulder. So for me, that tends to be 10 to 12 inches. I think I ended up with this one. If this one was around 23, maybe it was 24. It was around 23 to 24 inches. I think this one might have been 18. I think I dropped down one size. So this was a size 4. This one's a size 3. When we talk number sizes in knitting for knitting patterns, we're not talking about the size you would see on a sweater when you buy it in the store. We are talking about the placeholder of which directions you follow. So that's all that number means. It does not correlate to like US or UK or anything like that sizes you'd see on a top you would buy. It's just, that's where the directions you follow are in that 4th column or 3rd column, whatever. So this one is a size down from this one. I think you could go as low as 10 inches. If you are playing around with ease and you're not sure, because again, you can kind of, you have wiggle room. So if you're like, okay, I'm trying to decide between 2 sizes and I don't know whether to go up or down, I would look at the hip measurement as well on the schematic of this pattern. So I wonder if I can, would love, I'm going to see if I can pull up my copy because I would love to give a little bit more specific. Okay, I think I might be able to do it here. Okay, while that loads. So this silhouette is a little bit different than, say, the Weekender. The Weekender just has a straight boxy style body, and what works really well about that is it may look boxy when you hold your arms straight out, but when you collapse your arms, the drape of the sweater is what creates this kind of really nice silhouette. And so that's why a lot of those oversized sweaters might just have that kind of simple boxy shape. With this, I wanted to play around with, again, kind of taking a little bit of inspiration from like a classic sweatshirt. If you look at most classic sweatshirts you might buy, they tend to have a tapered waist. I didn't want to over taper the waist since this is pretty oversized, but there is about a 6-inch difference between the hem of the sweater and then the fullest part of the sweater, which is going to hit around the chest line. So for as far as the body goes. So if you are trying to decide between sizes, I would find out your hip measurement, and then I would go ahead and look at the hip measurement, the hem measurement of the finished sweater, and just kind of see, okay, how much room do I want around my hips? So you can kind of see, again, this is a slightly cropped sweater. In the front, in the back, it is going to go down onto your hips a little bit. It might not hit your fullest hip, but it is going down a little bit towards the hips there. So for instance, for this one, around my hips, I have 14 inches of positive ease. So I have 14 inches worth of space around my hips, whereas with this one, I have 8. So that might be a good way to determine, hey, how do I feel about how close I want it to my hips? I am just looking here at the hem circumferences. So the smallest I would ever go in this pattern for myself would be the size 2, which would only give me a couple inches of ease around my hips, and just barely that. So I wouldn't really want to drop too much further than that. I think that gives me like 2 inches of ease. That would still be okay for me, but I like having a little bit more wiggle room around my hip. So anyways, just to give you some ideas, a great way to pick your size, because I get this question a lot for any sweater pattern, is like, how do I pick my size? So ideally what you want to do is you need to know your chest measurement. I like to go around the fullest part of my chest, and then I look at the chest measurement of the sweater, which you can find on the schematic. It's also under the sizing. And I will look at what the designer says. When they say, if they're telling me I recommend this much ease, I would then take that amount of ease and either add or subtract it, depending if it's positive or negative ease, to my chest measurement, find that number, and then see out of the sizes which is the closest to that number. So for instance, let's say, so this one, I'm saying between 10 to 24 inches of positive ease. So let's say I want to do 10 inches of positive ease. I'm a 35 bust, the closest number to 10 inches of positive ease. So that would be 45 inches for me, but the closest size to that would be 46, which is the size 2, which is the smallest I would want to go. Now I can look at the other end of that spectrum and to the 24 inches of positive ease. So again, for me, 24 plus 35 is 59. If I look at the sizes here, the size 4 is a 58, which is what I knit here. So that's kind of the furthest I'd want to go. So really, I can do anything between a 2 and a 4, and then it comes down to personal preference. So I ended up doing the 4 and the 3 because I wanted to play with that positive ease a bit more. But if you're still like, oh, I just don't know, I don't know what I will like, go to your closet and see if you have anything that has some more positive ease that you can measure. And that's another great way to look at like, oh, okay, I really love this top. It's a looser fitting top. It has more positive ease. This is the measurement I'm getting. So I'm going to see if any of these sizes come close to that measurement. So it's a really, really great way to also kind of help inform your decision, because you can try that on. You already know how it fits, how it hangs on your body. So that can be helpful. Also, looking at other people's projects. I love to reference project pages on Ravelry or Instagram hashtags. I do it all the time for sewing because that can really help me see how does that garment wear on these different types of bodies. So that is a little bit about Nebula and its ease and picking a size. All right. Wow, we haven't even gotten into questions. I mean, this is literally me just blabbing. So anyways, I'm very excited about this top. I have loved wearing it and I hope that you do too. I also filmed 2 new tutorials, one of which was for the Nebula pattern. As I was finishing up the final draft of the pattern, I realized I don't have, or did not have, a plain old mattress stitch video tutorial. I have lots of video tutorials of me seaming up the backs of different stitch patterns of cowls using mattress stitch. I have 2 different tutorials for seaming up the rose cardigan, but none of them are just for mattress stitch. And I was like, oh, I can't believe I don't have a tutorial for this yet. So I did 2, one of which is specifically for how I like to close up the underarm on my drop shoulders. That's too far away for you to really see. But if you look at this, do you see how when I knit a drop shoulder, I bring the drop down my arm a little bit? I think it gives a more polished look and I just really like it. So I started doing that a couple years ago and I do it on quite a few of my drop shoulder sweaters depending on the style I'm going for. So what you do is as you finish up the body and you're going to separate for the front and back yoke, I cast on a few extra stitches to the front and the back. And when I'm done and I need to pick up stitches for the sleeve, I have to mattress stitch that little inch or 2 closed before I can pick up stitches for the ribbing for the short sleeve or to actually knit down the whole sleeve on the other version. So I finally went ahead and got that filmed. So that was kind of fun. Whoops. And you can find that along with all of my knitting tutorials right here on my YouTube channel, but I will link it below just in case you are curious. Put a little reminder there for myself, but goodness, I'm gonna take a sip of water and we are, oh my gosh, we're 17 minutes in. Andrea, Renee, we gotta get to some questions. Good Lord. Okay. Question number 1. Hi, Andrea. I love your new Nebula pattern. Thank you. I have Vellichor on my needles right now. I'm still knitting the body, and I'm curious whether you think I could use the instructions for Nebula as reference to add a bit of a sleeve to Vellichor and to also change the boat neck to the crew neck. Thoughts? So, absolutely, you can add a sleeve to Vellichor, and you could do, I'll even just tell you what I would do is I would figure out the circumference you want your sleeve. So if you want it to be kind of a puff sleeve shape like I did for Nebula, what I would do for Vellichor, it has that all over stitch pattern. So we're going to keep it super easy breezy, and I would figure out how wide you want that to be, which may just be the amount of stitches I'm telling you to cast on for just that little cuff you do on Vellichor. So if that is enough for you, I would go ahead and still just pick up that same amount. You just need to make sure that you can fit the stitch pattern repeat, which I want to say is 4 stitches. I mean, it's been a couple years since I designed that one. I feel like it's a 4-stitch repeat. So if I'm correct, you just need to cast on a multiple of 4 stitches, and you are just going to knit it until it's about the sleeve length you want. And then you are going to switch to whatever color you want your cuff to be. Probably is going to match your hem, and do a decrease round. We're going to get rid of like 30% of your stitches. You can also decide how big you want your cuff and do some quick math to figure out with your gauge, okay, this is how many stitches I would like my cuff to be, and decrease down to that all in one round. And then you're going to switch to ribbing. When you decrease down, you need to make sure, I believe Vellichor is a 1x1 rib, so you just need to make sure it's an even number for your cuff so that you can do a knit 1 purl 1 ribbing on it. And then just do your ribbing and bind off. So super easy peasy. You can absolutely do that modification. So there is the real good news. Now, the crew neck, that is trickier, especially because of the stitch pattern involved in Vellichor. You could not just take the instructions for this and throw them into there. Totally different gauge, the stitch pattern, all of that is what's going to make it tricky. I don't know how advanced of a knitter you are, how comfortable you are with modifications. You could attempt to throw a crew neck in there, but it's not going to be as simple as just getting this pattern and putting that neck in there, because they're just completely different patterns, different stitch counts. So it won't just transfer right over like that. But definitely the sleeves, you can do it. So best of luck. All right, this is another Nebula. I bought the pattern the moment it came out, and I have some DK weight I picked up at Maryland Sheep and Wool that would be perfect for it. I bought this wool in 2 colors and will need to use both to make the yardage work. My question is for you is, do you think it will be easy to modify this pattern to make it striped? I would do skinny stripes, 2 rows per color, so that I can carry the yarn up the whole way. So I do think it would be. One of my test knitters, Sabrina, did add stripes to hers, and it is super cute. I think the areas that I would want to avoid, if it were me, with your stripes, especially if you just want to kind of keep it easy, is the hem, because you're going to be doing short rows down there. And then also the very top of the yoke, you're going to do more short row shaping. So I would probably do what Sabrina did, which was she kept her stripes to the body of the sweater and avoided the hem and the very top of the yoke. So that is the area that I would avoid as far as that goes. Also, I am curious about your yarn. You are calling it a DK weight wool. And I do want to point out, I mentioned this on the pattern page and in the pattern, I did not have a lot of luck subbing up a straight DK wool for this yarn knit at this gauge. What happens is the yarn I used is Surrey alpaca. It is super fuzzy. The DK weight one is actually kind of like a boucle yarn, and so lots of texture and fuzz, and it blooms beautifully. That's why it has like this really, really nice drape. So when I attempted, back when I knit Broom, so Broom is my sweater I released in April, and I used the same yarn. And I wanted to be able to offer a yarn substitute because I know that not everyone is going to have access to a DK weight fuzzy yarn, or maybe, you know, it's just not your jam, whatever. So I wanted to try and find an easy sub, and I started with a DK weight wool. Well, I had to go up so many needle sizes to match gauge that the fabric completely changed, and it did not work out well, in my opinion. So I scrapped that, and that's why I then, for that sweater and this one, I ended up holding, I recommend between a fingering to a sport weight, and holding it with something that does have a little bit of fuzz. That can be a mohair, a Surrey alpaca, one of the new like amazing fluffy cashmeres that's out there. But I just wanted to give that heads up, is you might just definitely do a gauge swatch and make sure that you can get gauge and that you like the fabric you're creating if you do use that yarn. If it is a wool DK, just straight, you know, kind of worsted spun yarn, just make sure that you're still creating a fabric you like at the gauge that it needs to be. But I think adding stripes should not be a problem, and I'm gonna go ahead and link Sabrina's Instagram below so that you can check out her project. I'll put her project page on Ravelry too. So if you want to check out another striped one, you can. All right, question number 3. We always talk about using towels and blocking, but recently I had the idea of using the washing machine and running the garment through a spin cycle to get rid of the excess water, and that seems pretty effective. Do you know if I'm playing with fire and it's just a matter of time before disaster strikes? Or do you have any idea why we aren't routinely doing this as a community? So, a lot of people do. Anytime we chat about blocking, there are always other knitters that chime in talking about how they love to spin out the extra water in their machine. Part of this, I think the reason that maybe not everyone does it is a few things. Access to a washer and dryer, not all of us have them in our house, but also the type of washer you have. So I have a front loader, and my front loader does not just have a spin cycle. When I had a top loader, it did, but my machine doesn't, so I don't even have the option. So I think that's one of the reasons why not everyone does it, is because it kind of depends on the machine you have. And I do think some people, it scares them, like, ooh, but absolutely, you can do it. I recommend putting your garment into a garment bag before you do it, just to avoid any damage happening. But otherwise, yeah, there are people who even have like spinners that are electric spinners that they use just for blocking their knits or their hand spun yarn, and they spin out the water with them. I'm doing this like a salad spinner. That's not what I mean, you could probably do a salad spinner too. It's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the electric spinners. But yes, I know the people that do it absolutely love it because it cuts their drying time down so drastically. So if it's working for you, I say keep doing it. All right, a few episodes ago, you chatted about what I'm calling knitter's block, a lull in crafting inspiration, which got me curious as to what is currently inspiring you. Books, music, a color, a stitch, a location. I write as another hobby, and when I listen to music, sometimes it will drop a line or a scene in my head and it inspires a whole piece. Curious if that happens for you, but maybe with color? Thanks for considering my question. So I loved this. I loved the way that you broached this question. We have talked about getting, what else do we call it? Oh, I'm going to forget. It's not there. Burnout. But knitter's block works well. Crafting block, where we just lose our motivation and we kind of go through a lull. But I loved the way you talked about it, and I could envision, as you described, how books or music, or listening to music, how it can drop a scene in your head. It's like I could picture it. So I just loved that. You know what it is mostly for me? So I've talked about little things, like I find that doing a like quick and dirty project where I can get something finished is a lot of times what I need to get me out of a knitting slump. Or a crafting slump in general. Sometimes I just need to feel that sense of accomplishment. And then I'm like, okay, sorry, my little Pavlovian response, I just saw my lotion and I was like, ooh, I want some of that. Okay, so quick and dirty project, something small can definitely help get me on my way. A lot of times looking through books, like let's say for spinning, for instance, I love to spin. I mean, I love all my crafts, but I will still sometimes hit just a little quiet patch where I'm not doing it as much. If I go open up Yarnitecture by Jillian Moreno, I will want to spin all the yarn. There is something about that book that just sparks it for me where I'm like, oh, I don't know if it's her photographs, the way she describes it. It just gets me all excited again. Or sometimes watching like a workshop, an online workshop. So I love to do the School of Sweet Georgia spinning workshops, and I will watch those like Netflix. Like I will just watch, I'm not even doing the workshop as I'm watching it. I just will watch them, and that also will like reignite that fire for me. As far as knitting goes, I was thinking about, okay, what really gets me like so excited again? And typically it's when I fall in love with a new stitch pattern. So, or a way of playing with color. So fading, shifting, brioche, what else? Ooh, that texture I've been doing in the whole Traveler series. When I find something like that, I'm like, I want to try all the different ways I can now use it. And that's always really, really exciting and definitely makes me want to do all the knitting. So, and sometimes I'll just go through like a stitch dictionary and I will knit up a whole bunch of swatches and just see, okay, does any of these make me want to keep playing with it? And kind of go from there. A lot of times also, I would say sometimes when we're watching shows or a film, I'll see a piece of clothing somebody's wearing and I'll be like, ooh, like I love that silhouette, or I don't have a giant cardigan to wrap up in. I need one of those. So that is the Big Cozy Cardi. I was watching some show. I don't remember what the show was. All I know is that one of the characters had on a giant cardigan and I was like, why don't I have a giant cardigan? And I immediately got excited and started sketching out like, okay, what would my giant cardigan, what would the ideal one be? So that's some of the places that I find inspiration. But my absolute favorite is when I find that new stitch pattern or technique to lock onto that just is so fun and I can't get enough of it. So that's my sweet spot. All right, last question. I just finished a sweater knitted with 3 yarns held together, and today on its first outing, I snagged it on a small nail sticking out on the back of a chair. Oh, I gasped for you when I read this. It broke one of the strands, but not the other 2. Do you have any good suggestions for mending that? Would you just reinforce it as if it was a hole? Okay, I have snagged I think it was like 1 ply of a yarn that broke on a sweater I was wearing. So I don't know if this is an option for you, but I just thought I would share what I did. So mine was a woolly wool that I knew would spit splice, and I actually like gently pulled both ends out just far enough where I had enough that I could add the friction to spit splice that broken strand. And I mean, it was like this little time, I think I had to use my fingers. But that's what I did. I added a little water and added friction and I spit spliced it back together, and then I wiggled it back into place. And that was over 6 years ago and it's held. So if spit splicing is an option, I would try it. Otherwise, a couple ideas here. You're holding 3 yarns together, so I feel like you have a little wiggle room to hide things, maybe. So you could even just, as some people are going to go, Andrea. But again, for me, I'm like, there are things we can do that like, you're not really going to see. It's going to be fine. So this is where that's coming from, is you could tie a little knot in the one that broke. And if you can kind of zhuzh it, like use a little tapestry needle to poke it into place. Speaking of poking, another option, again, I don't know what your yarns are made of. So these are all kind of theoreticals, but you could do a little needle felting action to try to stabilize that area. You could even needle felt a little patch on the inside of your sweater, maybe just like with a little bit of fuzz to kind of because then the only other thing I could think of besides straight up trying to do a little mended reinforcement there, like a little patch, which you might not want to do on a just finished sweater, but could be cute, you know, a little visible mending, is if you had enough wiggle room to pull it out and to try and duplicate stitch each end a little bit on either side just to lock it in, but that might cause some weird tugging or ruching. So that's why that wasn't really my first option. But those are the things I would try. And I would love if anybody has some better ideas, because I feel like, I don't know. That's what I would do. I would probably just be like, whatever I can do so it doesn't get worse is fine. All right. Well, whew. Okay. I made up for some time there. So I'm wearing Nebula. I knocked Nebula over. It's just one of those days. But I hope that you have a great weekend. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, chatting with me. And I think that's all we've got right now. Is there anything else? I've got 2 new patterns on my needles that I'm very excited about. We have a special pattern releasing next month, but I'm still just hanging in the glory of this one. So I'm just gonna hang out with these guys for a little bit. I hope that you get to make something this weekend, and hopefully I'll see you back here next week. Bye.